Can you hear me? Is that better? Is that better? Is that better? Can you guys hear me now? Oh, you guys in the back. Is this good?
So you're here.
Alright guys, I want to welcome everyone for tonight, and we're going to kick this thing off. I would like to introduce Brian Hoskins, who's our host here at Microsoft, and he's got a couple of words to say, so go right ahead. Can you hear me?
Hi, I'm Brian Hoskins. I'm on the Merry Christmas. I'm Brian Hoskins. I'm on the emerging business team at Microsoft, and on behalf of Microsoft, I wanted to welcome everyone to Mobile Monday. We have a great panel lined up and a series of demos tonight, and I just wanted to welcome everyone. Just a show of hands, who has been to this campus before? So how many people did not know this campus existed? All right, that's good to hear. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Art, and we will get going.
Hi everyone. So tonight we have a handful of demos that we're going to do, just a couple minutes apiece. And afterwards, if you want to talk to me, the companies will hopefully be roaming around here and get a chance to get to know them a little bit better. So I want to call up Enthuse first.
So hi, I'm Jason Ling. I'm VP of Product at Enthuse, and what we are is we are a sports fan loyalty platform. So really kind of the simplest way that I can kind of describe it is that how many of you go to sporting events on a fairly regular basis? All right. So when you're there, you check in using Facebook or you check in using Foursquare, you're constantly taking photos or you know, sharing stuff on Twitter and Facebook and everything like that. So basically what we do is with our application both on iPhone and on Android is we reward you for doing actions that you're already doing. So you check in, we give you points for that. You upload photos that are associated with a particular team, we give you points for that. When you go into the application, what happens is we ask you to follow some teams that you're excited about, that you're interested in, and then what happens is that we kind of populate this wonderful list for you and let you know what's going on around you and what events are happening with the teams that you're following. And then we kind of goad you into going, do some actions, upload photos, talk about it, post on Facebook, tweet about it through the application, and we give you points for this. And then you can take those points, and unlike Foursquare where it's, you know, if you check in 900 times at the Starbucks that's around the corner from you, you become the mayor of Starbucks and you get a nice little virtual badge. That means absolutely nothing. Well, hey, it's true. But what if you did all of those actions and you could actually take those points and get actual stuff? So you take them, you do things, you earn points, and then you win real things. So we've been on iPhone since the end of October. We just launched on Android about a week and a half ago. And the really cool thing is that our current partners, we've got an association with the University of Miami, University of North Carolina, University of North Dakota, Butler, and we are currently talking to a couple of professional teams. We already have in the hopper the American East Coast Conference. So up in New England, you've got University of Albany, Binghamton, Boston University. All of these particular universities are actually using Enthuse to incentivize their students to go to events and other things on campus to check in and earn these points to win rewards. As I said, Enthuse, sports rewards platform, the simplest way is that you're already doing all of these things. We incentivize you, we give you points, you take those points, and you win real stuff. That's really the simplest way that I can describe it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mehdi Yadovkar. I'm the founder of a company called PunchTab. We're a little bit in the same market as Enthuse, so it's kind of funny that we do one after the other. We're basically an incentive and engagement platform. What this means in simple word, it basically means that any blog, businesses, brands, or even a startup can basically engage their users with our platform by using game mechanics. We basically run over 13,000 loyalty programs right now, over 1,000 giveaways every month. And what we've launched recently, about a month ago, is basically an app that's going to allow anyone, any startups, any app, any businesses to run a giveaway on mobile. So this is the app that we launched. It's called Giveaways by Punched. You're going to find it on the App Store. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. So you'll see a list of giveaways running at the top of the list. Obviously, Microsoft Surface that you can win. So you will basically click on it. You'll see more details about the giveaway, and you will earn points. You will earn entry into a virtual raffle to actually win this tablet. So here I can earn points by sending text to a friend of mine. So let me see if I can find my founder. Here, I'm gonna send text to this guy, or one entry. Then I can do more things like tweeting about it. So I'll get a referral link, and when I tweet, my friends can join the giveaway, and I will earn points if they earn entries if they join the giveaway. I can do more things like liking on Facebook. I can do more things like referring a friend by sending an email. Let's look at a little bit more giveaways here. We got Kindle Fire, who doesn't like Kindle. I'm gonna load up. And can tweet a little bit more here. Here we go. And if you follow me on Twitter, you will basically be able to actually join this giveaway. If you're interested into winning free stuff, go download the app right now. If you're interested in knowing more about the platform, you can come talk to me after this event. Thank you.
Next up, we have Mike from Showbucks.
Hi, so I'm Michael Yun from Showbucks. Showbucks is a mobile entertainment platform, and our mission is to bring face-to-face human interaction back to social networking. And we do this by combining social video and social games. So the first app that we just released is a social video acting and word guessing game. So it's a video charade. You pick a word, act it out in front of the camera for 10 seconds, and then you would challenge your friends to watch your video and guess what you're doing. So you can not only play one-on-one with your friends, you can also share the video and let everybody guess what you're doing. So here are some of the videos shared by some of our actors, and let's try this one. Wi-Fi, come on. Okay. Okay, can you guess what's the word?
Gangnam Style.
Right, so you can. And if you don't know the next letter, you can also fire a rocket, and it reveals the next letter. So you earn Showbucks by playing as well as by sharing video. And you can rate your friend's video so you can show up on the Wall of Fame. So we also have an Android version coming out, so you can play iPhone versus Android versus iPad. And one of the unique things is we will also be using this app as a way to audition new actors for a movie that we are making as well. So it's a way to discover new talent. And so you can follow us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/actionapps. The website is showbucks.tv. Thank you.
And next up we have Ryan from Picmodo.
everyone. I'm Ryan from Picmodo, and what we're doing is building an alternative game to fantasy sports. Fantasy sports, if any of you guys know, it's a very time-consuming game, requires a lot of patience and coordination, and it's not a game that translates well to mobile. So what we're trying to do is simplify the game and create something for perhaps more casual users. The heart and soul of the game is what you're looking at right now. You pick who you think is going to win. The basic element of the game is that simple. So the game for next week, Bengals, Eagles, let's pick Eagles. You see below it 2 coins that represents points that you win. So rather than a spread, which we think is a little bit complex and non-intuitive for most users, we have built a crowdsourced point system where the favored teams are worth less than the underdogs. So if the Eagles win, I win 13 points, and if I were to pick the Bengals and they win, I would win 8 points. So we have our basic game. What do we have on top of that? We have user stats. So if you're into sports, you're into stats. You want to see how well you're doing throughout the season, how you're doing week to week, what specific teams you might be doing well at, not well at, favorites. Okay, that's interesting. What else? We have leaderboards. So this is a game that we believe, sports is naturally a very social act, so we wanted to make it social. So we connect you with other friends that are playing with this. We track the top 20. We have pools, and we track week to week leaders. One thing I want to point out, we didn't come into Picmodo with any real strong preconceived notion of what our user demographic would look like. This is far away not a male-dominated game. You can see our top 2 scorers are female, and our demographic is about 60-40 male-female. So in order to make the game more social, we modeled it after some of the more popular casual social games you see you play day-to-day, Words with Friends, Draw Second, etc. We have head-to-head challenges, and you can play in pools. This is a feature that just launched for NFL playoffs. Set a little friendly wager. We spent a lot of time working on the user experience for this game. It's something that we feel is lacking in a lot of sports apps, and it's an area we kind of want to innovate in that space. Did you say 1 minute? Okay. So this is probably the only meetup in Silicon Valley where 2 sports startups demoed. So I want to make my prediction for 2013 before I have to leave, that 2013 will see the first big breakout sports startup from Silicon Valley. Thank you.
So next up we have Blumberg. You guys still here? Okay.
Well, hi, I'm Keith Wilcox with Learn4. We're a math education startup aiming at making the learning process easier for students and teachers alike. The core of our experience, which I'm going to show you today, is based on our step-by-step problem solver with natural handwriting recognition. So let's start with a simple problem. 2 squared. Now let's try and continue this problem. So x squared equals 4 divided by 2. It's going to immediately tell us and give us instant feedback the moment my mobile internet connection works, saying, oh, that's the correct answer, correct step. Let's say now I think that x equals 3 because I'm very bad. So try and add this step. No, that's just not right. So I'm going to ask and have it tell me the rest of the solution. As you can see, we color the individual pieces so that you can sort of track everything through and understand it better. But the really nice thing about this comes when we try and enter something a little more complex. Say square roots, cube roots, etc. These are things that would be horrible to enter via text. But when we have the natural handwriting recognition, it becomes just a cinch. As you can see right there. And we don't have this quite working with step-by-steps yet, but this even supports more advanced notation like integrals. And here you're just going to see it's going to be. There you go. So this is our student edition. This is for, primarily students, but we have a teacher edition in the works. It's going to let you create homeworks and automatically grade. And our sort of prediction for 2013 is that the end of math grading for teachers is near. And this works on all major mobile platforms.
Okay, so next up we have Michael and Squirrel. Oh, and Mark. Michael and Mark. And Squirrel.
Well, you got that? Yep. So, Michael and Mark from Squirrel. We're the #1 video search and discovery app in the iOS store right now. We have 1,200 reviews, 4.5-star rating. Things are going great in the App Store for us right now. We've seen 2,000% jump in weekly downloads in the last month over month, and we have users coming back over 5 times on average to the app. So, but let's jump in. Go ahead.
Sure. So we're going to show you how to use Squirrel. First, we're going to show you a little bit about our search, and then our discovery platform, and finally how to personalize Squirrel. Okay. Should I search for Mark?
Try, let's go for Brad Pitt, because it's really short.
Easy to spell, thank you.
And you do think he's handsome. So as you see, we have sort of free or ad-supported content up top. We're also showing Brad Pitt videos that are inside of Netflix and Hulu, so we have premium content. We're also the only video app that brings in both free ad-supported content alongside premium content. And we also have social feeds at the bottom. Actually, you know what? We might not have enough time, so why don't you just add it to your queue to save for later. You can also like videos inside of Squirrel and share them via Twitter, Facebook, or email. So on to discovery.
Okay, let's find some new content.
So we have this social activity feed inside of Squirrel. You can follow people and your friends so you can see what they're watching. And you can also see what the entire community is watching at any given time. We also give you privacy controls if you don't want people to see what you're watching, which is usually the case with Mike. So we also have algorithmic discovery. This is our What's Hot section. We sort of tell you what's trending across social networks, across the hundreds of different providers that are already inside of Squirrel. We have 500,000 feeds. So we're monitoring all of that and telling you kind of what's hot based on sharings and likes and things that we're tracking, as well as behavior inside of Squirrel. So here's an area where you can go in and, well, you can log in. So we give you a profile that you can manage all your premium subscriptions. And you can also pull in existing subscriptions, your existing queue with Netflix, things like that. You'll also be able to find your friends on Twitter and Facebook. We also pull in videos from there, so you can create channels of video. And then you can also go in and choose specific categories of interest. And as you do that, you can choose providers that map to that category. So Michael's going to comedy, picking Funny or Die, or Conan O'Brien, Jimmy Kimmel, and then, or gaming. And once you do that, we have a section called Fresh, where basically we get the latest and greatest videos from inside your channels and present them in a playlist across those different providers. So if you're in comedy, you can start watching a video and it'll just playlist pretty seamlessly. This makes for a really great AirPlay scenario. So you've got Apple TV. We were one of the first apps to integrate Apple AirPlay to Apple TV. You can sit back and watch. And I think, the only other thing we just recently launched our live channels. So our latest version has these live channels, and we were covering TechCrunch. So that's it. Download Squirrel, SQURL.
And next up we have the guys from Orange.
Hi, good evening everybody. My name is Giles, and I run Libon, a team at Orange, indeed, that is developing a completely new communication service. It's an all-in-one communication service with some differences. Here we go. So it starts off like many other services. It brings in your contacts. It has brains to go and work out of your contacts who's also using the service. But what it does that's pretty unique is it allows you to just go and take the ones that are important and go and drag them and drop and become part of your favorites. And your favorites are always there. In my case, this first screen is my family, and then I have colleagues, etc. And I can carry on and create as many of these as I want. And of course, because it's an all-in-one communications app, I can just click on one of these guys and take, I can click on, what am I going to take? I'll go here, because I know he's in the US, so I'm not going to wake somebody up. And I can just go and call him, and that'll go, well, okay, I've just switched on to Edge, which is a bit of an issue. But as soon as I get back onto a 3G network, I can go and show you what it does. So I can go and place calls, I can message, of course. Notice that one of the things that's unique about this is it doesn't hassle you with presence and availability and stuff like that. It enables you to go and call people whether their phone is running or not, whether the app is running or not, their phone will ring. And all of this is made possible also because it has a pretty unique voicemail service in it. This is actually voicemail on steroids. What it does is it gives you a visual voicemail client, as you can see here, enables you to go and listen to a message. Of course, it will also go and transcribe it so that you can go and see what it's about, and in case you can't listen to it. But what is absolutely unique, because I've got all of these really key people in here, is that they can go and call me and I can go and deal with them as they are. I go and speak to my wife as I speak to my wife and not as I speak to my boss. So when she calls me, she gets a greeting message that tells her how much I love her, my undying love. Whereas when my parents call me, they go and get a message that tells them that I swear I'm not filtering their calls, I love them dearly, and I will get back to them. And when my kids call me, when my son calls me, he doesn't call me that often now because he goes and gets a message and asks him whether he's finished his homework or not. So, a unique voicemail service in there that means that when people call, they go and get greeted appropriately. When I go and call anybody, whether their phone is on or off or whatever, it's cool, I can get through to them. And because this is so cool, we actually go one step further, and it doesn't just work for the lib-on to lib-on calls, it actually works for all calls to my normal old cellular number. And so, of course, I can call all of my lib-on contacts for free, but some of the key people in my contact list aren't lib-on users. My dad is one of them, and that's not a problem. If I go and choose to call him, I can, well, I could invite him into the service, but I can also go and call him on an international landline, and the service will work, and it'll go through and place that call. So premium users, so everybody who downloads this can go and get all of the free user-to-user calls, and anybody who downloads it tonight or tomorrow can also get free international calls, an hour a month for the next 6 months. That is tonight's promotion. Thank you very much. Is that a 1 minute bit? Thank you.
So we have one last one, Dimitri from Grantto.
Good evening. So Grantto is a solution that enables students and family to finance tuition and charities by playing social games with their friends at no cost. How do we do that? We integrate our SDK called the Propeller SDK on existing games that adds social features to the games and also monetization features. So I'll show you. This game was a single player game. We enter our experience by clicking multiplayer. This is Grantto loading, it's a web SDK. So we have two modes. We have the challenge mode and the tournaments mode. The challenge mode is not sponsored. That will basically create new downloads for your game with, and we respect the artistic integrity of each game. So we create a challenge by inviting someone through Facebook, through Grantto, or just randomly. And that will create downloads to your game. And we don't charge anything for any downloads. Now the tournament part is interesting because it actually gives the ability to Fortune 500 companies, and I was discussing that with our friend David Blumberg, on how these big corporations can actually do in-game advertisements without having to buy banner ads that are clicked accidentally half of the time. So here we're going to click on Coca-Cola. We're going to start participating in the tournament. So we do in-game advertising without ever putting games in the game, ads in the gameplay, which is very annoying for any player. So I just received the challenge from my co-founder. I'm going to accept the challenge. I'm going to engage with Coca-Cola in a very new fashion because now they're trying to pay for my tuition. Go, I lost. Cool. No tuition for me. It doesn't matter because it's free and I can re-challenge him. So that's basically it. We give a medium for Fortune 500 to express themselves on mobile screens. And it's a solution for game developers who are struggling with competition and new features to add. We put the challenge box with the Zynga's challenge or something in a box for them. It's a 20 minutes integration to their game, and it's really add a lot to the game. And they can keep focused on creating what they love, which is great games.
Yeah, we're all gonna do it. All right, guys. So we have a special gift for everybody tonight that we put together. Let's see. If you guys want to go, so it's me, Jeremiah. Do you have yours? Okay. Artie, you have yours? Okay. Brandon, he's here. And Brandon's got his, and Mike. And then Ryan. Ryan's next. And then John.
Yeah.
John.
I'll be there.
Are you good? Okay.
I'll be there.
John's ready. He'll come up. And then Mark. Mark's here. You got your couple. Joselito. All right. And go back to Artie. We got to Mark. Yeah, that'll work. All right. But I also have it here for this guy. Maybe we'll transfer the hat.
Looking good in that hat, Mark.
All right, guys. This is our rendition of "Twas the Night Before Funding." "'Twas the night before funding went all through the bay. Not a VC was stirring, not even Ron Conway. The term sheets were hung by the chimney with care, with hopes that Andreessen and Horowitz would soon be there. The founders were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of engineers danced in their heads.
And devs at their laptops, reviewing the stack, had just settled their brains for a long night hack. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like Ruby on rails, tore open the shutters and threw up the sails.
The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should not make up, but miniature Keiretsu and 8 tiny startups. With a little old investor so lively and gay, I knew in a moment it must be Ryan Conway.
19 more rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Flipboard, now Foursquare, now Trulia and Twitter, on Facebook, on Dig, on Sugar and Flickster.
To the top of the incubator, to the top of the wall, now dash away, exit away all. Just at the butterflies before a live demo day, the team flew across the sky coming our way.
So up to the incubators, the founders they flew with a sleigh full of banknotes, and Conway too. And then in a twinkling, I heard the voices of Venture Beat, and the prancing of pawing of each little feet.
As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney run Conway came with a bound. He was dressed all in swag from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all labeled with logos and soot.
A bundle of pitches were flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples so merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry.
His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the head of his head as white as the snow. The stump of a cigar he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke encircled his head like a wreath.
He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was a chubby and plump and a right old jolly angel, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of my ape.
A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and signed all the term sheets, then turned with a jerk. And laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, off he went with Kevin Rose.
He sprung to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, happy funny to all, and to all a good night. All right, guys, I'd like to call the panel. Thanks, everybody. What I'll do for introductions, I'll start off here on the left, so the far left. Rob, you can just introduce yourself, say your name, who you're with, and then we'll work our way through this one.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Coneybeer. I'm Managing Director with Shasta Ventures. Hi, David Blumberg, Managing Partner and Founder of Blumberg Capital, based here in the city.
Hi, I'm Ian Small. I'm with Twas, recently acquired by Telefonica, so I'm part of the Panelists on Venture.
Rich Wong, Excel Partners.
Tim Lee with Sequoia Capital.
Todd Carpenter, Wilson Sonsini. And Topher Conway, SV Angel.
Cool, thanks guys. Just starting with a mic check here. So it's been a great year. I think in our industry, a lot of consolidations happened. Big and small. And let's start with the big one for the year, Instagram and Facebook. And wanted to get, was this a talent acquisition? Was this a user acquisition? Why so much? Are we really in a bubble right now? Or what do you think was the strategy of Facebook for that acquisition? First guy, Rob, you can start.
Well, Instagram's always fun to talk about. Because it was such a huge outcome. And it's also such a, to be simplistic about it, a fun product. And as a result of being a fun, engaging product that made anybody feel like a great photographer, it was a real threat to Facebook. So I think everybody in this room, having followed what happened, realizes that that's a big part of the reason that it was such an overnight acquisition, is because photographs are so important and core to Facebook's strategy for engagement that they probably felt that when they thought they were going to be worth $100 billion after the IPO, and get a percent returns probably wasn't that bad an idea. And I'll talk about the opposite. I'll talk about the non-Instagram businesses, because those are well-known. Valuations get highly, highly bid up, and so on and so forth. But down at that very, very, very seed stage, ground level, we're not seeing that much inflation. That's, I think, a good thing. It keeps the ecosystem more reasonable for both sides of the aisle. So I think that's a good trend that we have not seen huge price inflation at the seed level.
I don't think you need to ask the panel about Instagram. I'm curious to know how many people in the audience actually think they'll recognize Instagram in 18 months. It won't be there anymore.
Nobody raised their hand?
I'm going to give them a chance.
I'll raise my hand. I'll bet it'll look remarkably so.
I might take a bit of a different view in there. Having Sequoia was involved, as has been reported in the press, for a short while, a matter of days, which is never the way that we enter into business, with an outcome like that in mind. So it's always a bittersweet outcome. The hope, though, is that Instagram may end up like YouTube in a fashion where it is a recognizable brand. Clearly they built a lot of goodwill around that brand value, and I think what it indicates for everyone sitting here in this room and all the developers who are focused on mobile, it illustrates that the incumbents and everyone in the ecosystem recognizes the value and potential disruption of mobile. And for some folks who've been working in mobile for many, many years, I think it's been a long time coming. And I think we'll start to see more of that going forward.
So there's other things going on in the industry. Yahoo's been on the buying spree. That's very interesting. I think after Marissa took the reins. What do you guys think about that? I mean, so they've acquired, was it Stamped?
I don't think I'd call Stamped a buying spree. But it's a small acqui-hire.
Yeah, where they're doing
a very good team
on the air video. So, when it comes to acquisitions, what I've seen lately is it's talent, because it's so hard to find engineers because all the damn angels have to give them $100K to do their own business. So there's some deficit there. But in reality, like when you guys have been seeing acquisitions and consolidation in the industry, what are the major drivers? Is it really talent acquisition, or is it really going after a user base because they're or some IP?
I think that, look, I mean, those of us have been coming to Mobile Mondays for a while. I think statement of the obvious that the tipping point, I think, is really here, that if you are even a medium or a large internet company, if you don't have a clear mobile strategy to engage users on that platform, I think people talk about the mobile cliff these days, sort of an analogy to the fiscal cliff or government or country is facing. I think you have to figure out how to transition users to that medium because of where everybody's spending time. So I think, whether it's much more developed assets like an Instagram or talent like a Stamped, I think it's a pretty healthy time to be a mobile entrepreneur. So I think there's a lot of strategic interest from teams all the way up to engaged user assets, to monetization platforms, to game platforms. So it's a good time to be in the space because the device tipping point of mobile devices versus PCs or desktops is clearly flipped over, and I think it's pretty obvious it's not coming back the other way.
But here's a point again about the ecosystem in general, that the fact that the capital efficiency of mobile companies is so much better than the old, say, enterprise software that most of us invested in for the last 20 years, makes it, yes, the IP is what people get bought for at big prices, but there's a permanent talent shortage, and because the mobile system is growing so fast, there's not enough programmers, et cetera, et cetera. So there's kind of a trampoline underneath that supports pricing for acqui-hires, or whatever you want to call them. That's sort of a derisive name, but the idea is basically you're getting paid for talent, and that's a good thing, and that shows that you're valuable people to the ecosystem. You're going to have jobs again. It's not like your company gets bought and you get thrown out. And the other point is that the early stage companies are basically only hiring engineers. They don't grow the old way an enterprise company would grow with lots of accounting and marketing and sales and a lot of other stuff. There's a team of engineers core, and in a year or so you know whether it's going to succeed or fail. And if it does fail, it can still be sold, and you guys have jobs, the founders get some money, VCs maybe get their money back. And we're looking for the big IP wins, but at least there's a nice trampoline that didn't exist in the enterprise world historically.
Interesting. So Topher, at least on the angel side, acquisitions going on with some of your investments, and what are you seeing?
Absolutely, and that's actually a service that we provide. Is we work a lot with our companies to give them soft landings, because we understand that a lot of these companies aren't going to be the breakout winners, which isn't to say that they shouldn't try it, because you never know when they'll hit. But that being said, it is very difficult, and especially on mobile platforms, it's very difficult to build an engaged community. To be a first screen app is very difficult, and not everyone makes it there. So that being said, it's a very healthy market for talent acquisitions, and we're all for it. We're, of course, like Dave said, we're looking for the big win. But that being said, we're very happy when our companies have soft landings and everyone has a job at the end of the day, and they're happy where they are, which is the most important thing.
So a question here, how many people use WhatsApp in the audience? Is it for friends in the US or friends overseas? For friends overseas, raise your hand. So a lot of rumors, Facebook acquisition, definitely on the messaging side. And I think I've seen them. I don't know how many hundred million users they have. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, for some of these mobile, I think mobile communities, getting an exit is very difficult once you get to a certain size. And I think it only leaves you a couple of players that are out there too for acquisition. But I just want to get your thoughts on WhatsApp and who's spreading these rumors.
You are.
You, Rob, on the end.
Well, we're in business with WhatsApp and over at Sequoia. In fact, we got into business with them when they were less than a dozen folks. A small team in Mountain View, a tiny little office, and no one knew who they were in the US. They're very private about their metrics. In fact, what they have released is to say that I think we're doing 10 billion messages a day a little while back, and Jan tweeted that. And they've also come out to say that the rumors are not accurate. So, needless to say, we get into business with founders and teams who are out there to build a large, enduring business, and it has to be a business that can stand on its own. And of course, in the journey towards being a large, independent, oftentimes public business, you often do have suitors who come by and want to talk to you. So that's happened in lots of companies over the years, and so I don't think it should be.
So what's their exit strategy? Do you want an IPO? What do you expect of them?
We really don't talk about exit strategy.
Now I know who's spreading the rumors. Cool. At least we got some inside information on WhatsApp. So let's move on to.
Happy with that inside information.
Let's move on to funding. There's some interesting stuff happened this year. Mozilla did some investment in Everything Me, and obviously, Mozilla is really heavily focused on mobile this year, and next year a lot of things are going to break out for them on the mobile side. Folks interested in HTML5 here in the panel, feel free to chime in on what your thoughts here with Mozilla doing some investment and the HTML5 ecosystem. Is it ripe for investment at this point in time?
Well, I think from the standpoint of HTML5 and the upcoming Firefox devices, there's just a general push going on. Perhaps outside of the bubble we all live in here. For me, over the last 60 days, one of the things that's been interesting is getting outside the Silicon Valley bubble, seeing what's happening in Europe and what's happening in South America and Latin America. And it is a different world. There are different opportunities there. This whole idea of an open web device, which Firefox OS is pushing towards, and Everything.me, which obviously was a Mozilla investment, Telefonica digital investment as well, is about continuing to open up the mobile landscape and trying to make more alternatives and more choices for people. Because frankly, you go to some countries in the world and phone penetration could be 100%, mobile phone penetration, but smartphone penetration, the way we think of smartphone penetration, is 5%. And it's not about, it's about getting that first phone out there and what's the route to that. And that's why Firefox OS is happening. It's why Mozilla started to invest this area to push a true open web device, open the way we all think about open, not necessarily quite so much the way Android is pseudo-open. And obviously, iOS is those phones, all great alternatives, but different markets also need different options. We don't see that as much here in the Valley, but you see it outside the Valley.
The investment side, are all of you looking for HTML5 investments at this point in time? Who's not? Really? Okay, why not?
Because I don't believe it as a long-term. I think it will occupy a segment of the market, but I don't think it is unique enough that you can build super valuable tools just for that small segment of the market. It's fine. Maybe wrong, but that's my personal view. I also think, for what it's worth, when you look at the trends, smartphone penetration for low-price Android devices is dramatically swamping the old feature phone market to the detriment of some of my investments, I must say. But I think that trend is inexorable and accelerating. So I think if you sort of think about where the puck is going to, I think smartphones are going to have a pretty broad distribution.
You're out by.
Yeah, I was going to say mainly because I think there's just better opportunities in other areas around mobile. So rather than trying to reinvent the web of mobile, what does mobile unlock and enable that wasn't possible anywhere else? So the native stuff works pretty damn well. And from a startup point of view, there's plenty of developers to be found in iOS today, relatively speaking. Yeah, but we look to build businesses that are about customers and end users that love the product. And that's what happened with, and we were talking about Instagram before, as I understand it, and I wasn't directly involved, but basically HTML5 was a disaster. And they grew because they said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to adopt native on iOS, we're going to go deep, and we're going to go after the consumer, and we're going to put that first before we put the developer's needs first. So those are the businesses that we think about. Now, whether HTML5 or native wins out over time, we really don't care that much. We're going to follow it. We're going to see what's there. But what we're interested in doing is building businesses where you have an amazing customer and end user experience, and today native is that answer.
Yeah, no, we don't even think about it in that term. We would look for companies, again, that are solving some kind of a problem, and depending on what platform that you're choosing, the developers will know best what your market is. But we're much more interested in sort of different verticals and platforms and ideas that are not some code specific.
Got it. So it's really not about what's in the back end, but really about the consumer side. Moving on to another funny topic, which is, okay, we probably talked this way too much, but mobile payments. A lot of stuff moved forward this year on the mobile payment side. There's also, card-free, I think it just came out today. Ex-Starbucks vets are welcome to card-free and get some good investment, like $10 million. Really, guys, I mean, is it really going to be a small guy going to come and really change the world? Or is it going to be Visa, MasterCard, and the big banks that are really going to be the ones that are the powerhouses to tip us over, right? What are you guys' thoughts? And also, if we look overseas, there's the M-Pesa. That's, you probably know, who's heard of M-Pesa out there? Okay. How many of you are not Americans? Yeah. Okay. So a couple thoughts. I'll open it up. Mobile payments. I want to get everyone's answer on this one. Mobile payments. Your thoughts. You got 10 seconds. No, but go. Kind of give us your, starting with Rob. What do you think? Mobile payments, and also you heard of M-Pesa. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can't speak to M-Pesa, but I would just say mobile payments, there will be a few major winners. It takes a lot of capital to really break through. And again, what I would emphasize here is, what does it mean to the end user? The end users being two people, the people that actually pay money and the people that get money. And if you look at Square, for example, Square is very, very focused on a great merchant experience in addition to thinking about the transaction costs. And I think there will only be a few people that break through. And the one other thing I would say is, actually, PayPal has been remarkably aggressive post-acquisition in terms of opening itself up and building itself into a platform that integrates with lots and lots of developers and applications. It's almost shocking how aggressively they've moved in that space. Those are just my observations.
I think that's absolutely right. I think they recognize the threat instead of new players. First of all, I think the concept of mobile payments is a catch-all, a whole bunch of subspaces that almost have nothing to do with each other. So you have to sort of understand it's sort of the Echobox Zong category, of SMS clearing, or is it next generation payments gateways like a Braintree or Stripe, or is it something like Square, which is fundamentally changing SMB payments? They're all almost totally different categories that have almost nothing to do with each other. I think one thing we can be sure of is Visa and MasterCard and the big banks will not be the innovators. I think that's the one thing we can be very, very sure of. And I think, we happen to be investors in Braintree, I think others like Sequoia investors in Stripe. Both of those are examples of next generation gateways that are very much orienting around mobile commerce as a growing vertical. And they're both growing quite rapidly. So I think that's an example of a set of startups that I think are very much challenging the incumbents.
David?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I would go past payments into financial services and so on, because the transactions or the lending that you're doing is way more valuable than just the ka-ching on the transaction part, on the payments part. So for example, I just came back from Colombia yesterday, and we have a company there in the Philippines called Lendo, and they use Facebook as a proxy for a credit score, because there are about 150 countries in the world where there aren't very good credit bureaus, and the rising middle class needs access to credit. And with a mobile phone, you don't need a branch of a bank. So mobile phone enables this incredible reduction in capital intensity of the businesses. You can lend much faster, much cheaper, and more efficiently, and help a lot of people. And on the other side of it, and the credit clearing space, also for both mobile and web, we have one that's similar to some of the ones you were just talking about in Europe, that in its first year of business is going to transact several $100 million of credit card clearing transactions. Second year, probably $1 billion. I don't see that very often. It's an amazing world we're living in where you can see that kind of growth in companies. Companies want to use it for your e-commerce. It's called Credorax.
I think if you double click on what you said about Colombia, it's sort of interesting to think about in rapidly developing economies like that. While everybody might have a phone, only 30–35% of people have bank accounts.
Exactly.
So think about what it means to be in the mobile commerce business where people don't actually have a bank account. Period. Full stop. That's because the credit scoring, there's all sorts of problems that need to be solved there. Massive economies, and it's like, it's a different world. So there are all sorts of levels to this. But I would completely agree, Visa and MasterCard are not going to innovate their way through this problem. Period. Full stop.
Nor the big banks. They'll be partners for you, but you guys are the innovators.
I mean, we're investors in Square and Stripe, believe in this space. I think one of the biggest payments innovations though on mobile was really the tie-in of iTunes to the iPhone and the App Store. That's enabled in-app payments that has spurned an economy which a lot of you guys benefit from.
I think it'll be the big banks that will ultimately house the technology, but it's going to be the folks in this room that will invent it. But with the regulatory restrictions and the back-end requirements, I think ultimately it'll get to a scale where to bring it over so everyone's using it is going to require a bigger institutional financial.
It's on legal implications. So you can have the back-end side, definitely there is a lot of regulation. But then on the front side, like on Square, at least the consumer-facing side, it is Wild West.
Well, and you have issues going international as well, even on the user side. So I think, like I said, I think it's going to take someone that has a global scale that will be able to expand this more broadly. Because I think the technology will be created by a small company, but it takes a big player to really push it.
Like a PayPal way back in the day.
So, along with Tim, we're investors in Square and Stripe, and we pay in a number of other companies. So we're very big believers in the space and think all the innovation is going to come from the developers, from the people who think outside the box. The Visas and Amex and MasterCards of the world, they're surprisingly innovative and willing to work with developers, which is a great sign. But we're big believers and think that the real innovation is going to come from you guys.
Cool. So I shift things a little bit. On funding, though, and we'll start here with you, Topher. Crowd. Someone hit the lights over there.
Look in the door, lean against the light.
All right. So crowdfunding. So there's good, bad, and ugly. And I'll kind of review it. So crowdfunding, going under review, I don't know if it got passed, but we're going to be it for next year. Just allow anyone to do investments. At this point in time, it's highly regulated. There's a minimum of 10K to go in for investment. But what this would allow is your next door neighbor, your friends, family people on the web, and raise a fund around. At a very high level, off of Wikipedia, here's the good, the bad, the ugly. On the good side, it's easier to raise funds with no limit, with no minimum limit, by
the way. So I can guess 50 cents if I wanted to. The bad, a lot of investors to manage, and they would probably have a lot of small amounts. And the ugly is federal regulations that you'll be required to expose all your future plans. So a roadmap, what you're going to do with the money, where the company's heading in a certain direction, and expose that on the internet to the public. So your competition will be essentially you'll be exposing yourself to your competition if you have some. So start with you, Topher. Your thoughts about crowdfunding, is it good for the industry or bad?
Overall, it's great for the industry. I'm not going to get into the regulations. Other people may not get into that. In terms of communicating with investors, that's a technology problem, in my opinion. And the best part is that more people get funding. We've always been big believers in if someone has an idea, they should have a shot at seeing that through. And if crowdfunding is, an end to a means there, then we're all for it. The benefits definitely outweigh some of the costs there.
Yeah, I think that crowdfunding in theory is a good idea, but I think that in practice it's going to be incredibly difficult. The SEC is really reluctant to pass the regs that are necessary to put it in place, and when they do, there's going to be quite a bit of burden on the portals that are required for crowdfunding. So I think probably that crowdfunding gets most of the press, but I really think the bigger innovation that the SEC is working through the system now is the relaxation of the general solicitation rules. So that what that means is you can generally broadcast your desire to raise funds, and as long as you end up only selling to accredited investors, that's permissible. As the regs currently stand, you're only even allowed to offer to accredited investors in order to qualify for certain exemptions. So I think that that's actually much more a useful innovation than crowdfunding.
Well, I think that, like Topher, anything that gets more people the opportunity to try an idea is a good thing. I actually think what's more interesting is the ability not to test sort of the investor community, but to test for potential customers. And most of the Kickstarter campaigns today, I know it's a slightly different completely different set of regulations that govern that. But what it means is that you can be pre-market launch and have some indication of people really willing to put down money for a product which you intend to build.
A comment?
I think there's a couple of things to think about. I completely agree that the difference between crowdfunding and Kickstarter gets you something as an entrepreneur, as a founder, CEO. But the thing that, and in general, it's funny, I suspect 1/4 of all startups that walk through a door here somewhere start with we're democratizing something, so why we shouldn't democratize startups as well as everything else seems pretty reasonable. But the thing as a founder, entrepreneur, CEO that you want to think about is the more dumb investors who are going to ask you questions and take up your time at some point down the road, that's not a good thing. And you'd be surprised, you have investors who aren't that intelligent about the business that you're in, who put their money in, and to them the amount of money they put in is a lot of money, and you're further down the road and to you it's not a lot of money, and you have a choice, you either shut all these investors off, and be very happy with you, they earned something, they came in really early, it actually burns up a lot of your time. And yes, while all the portals in theory should help, they're still going to call you, they're going to ask for information, you're going to have to deal with what you can or can't tell them according to regulations. And that to me is the actual unseen question behind the crowdfunding issue is what are the demand it puts down the road on the CEO, the founder, the entrepreneur. That's what I would think about before I went down that path.
And what I like crowds for a lot of things, especially in making things less asymmetrical in terms of knowledge. So for example, right now in financial services, the banks, insurance companies know a lot more typically about their products, offerings, and so on than you do. And so crowd sourcing of knowledge about that is a pretty interesting idea. In medical areas, often the crowd will come up with a better diagnosis than a general practitioner. So there are a lot of areas where the crowd is going to be right. I think that there are some problems that were mentioned here for getting a sense of your product viability. I think it's a very good idea to try with that, especially if people willing to pay for it. That's a sign. So that's a good one. On the other hand, I think eventually you want to focus down on some investors that are going to stick with you for the long term, and have the ability to add some more value. So there's places for both, but don't forget about us folks too.
So how many people in this room have considered crowdfunding? Yeah, so the one thing I'd add, I don't want to be redundant with what's said here, but I've been very focused on internet-powered hardware. So I've been out talking to a lot of the people that have done these Kickstarter campaigns. And the only thing that I would say is that, like anything with the crowd, when you do it the first time or the second time and it's new, it's kind of an arbitrage. And now it's become, it's hard to believe, but after a year, it's kind of a mature industry. So the people that are doing well in Kickstarter right now are incredibly well prepared. They have very high production values with their videos. They have everything teed up with social media before they go in. And they have figured out how to really tickle the emotional, I'd say, receptors of the people that they want to reach. And it's not easy anymore. So it looks easy. People that do it, you know, you go to the press, you go, oh, I threw it up and it was easy. That's what they're going to say publicly. But when you dig beneath the covers and you take a look at the people that raised north of $500,000, let alone north of $200,000, it's an incredibly professional campaign that they've run, with perhaps one or two exceptions.
Life seems to sort itself into a power log in every place you look. So.
Wanted to move over to verticals that are taking off in our industry, and so definitely one on messaging. I think this year we saw a decline in SMS for the first time. That was a little interesting in some areas because it's moving over to more digital communities. The other one is app discovery, with now quite a few 100,000 million apps out there. How are things going to get discovered and merchandised? I think the typical top list is not going to work anymore. And also something new, peer-to-peer markets. Who's used peer-to-peer this year? Lyft, Sidecar. Okay, who used Lyft? That's just crazy. I've never gotten this straight in a car with a stranger. But there's other stuff. I think Zarly. Who uses Zarly? Who's used Zarly? Okay, TaskRabbit. Who's a TaskRabbit for house cleaning? Okay, Airbnb. Yeah, Airbnb is pretty awesome. Cool. So I'll start with you, Rob. At least in these areas of verticals, like what are you seeing in the messaging, maybe app discovery, peer-to-peer stuff? You want to pick one of these that you like?
Yeah, I won't talk about app discovery because I think it's a developer problem versus an end user problem. It's kind of like, hey, I don't like paying for installs, so I'd like to find some other way to get people to install it. The thing that I think about, and the kind of the vertical I'm very interested in, is how do you reach offline industries that were never influenced before? So TaskRabbit's an example, Postmates is an example. That's where you have couriers that find jobs to do just from their phone, and you order something online. But I think companies like Relay Rides, where we're an early investor, it's peer-to-peer car sharing. So if anybody in this room wants to rent out their car when they're not using it, I'm sure nobody's behind on their payments, but if you were behind on your payments, it's a great way to make a little extra money when your car is not being used. But where mobile is an incredibly powerful enabler is that the entire experience is optimized for mobile. Whether you want to list your car, you take photos of your car, it walks you through the process of doing that and listing it and putting it up. Whether it's finding a reservation for a car, let's say you reserve the car in real time, and it has maps, it takes you to the car, and if you have an OnStar enabled car, you can unlock the car. While you do that, then you can take pictures of the car to show whether there was any damage or maybe a dent that was in the car. They're all time and date stamped, because that's built into mobile. And then you can use that to start the car, drive around, when you come back, lock the car, take pictures of the car to show that there was no damage. And that entire experience is incredibly well suited to mobile. So when we think about mobile, and when I've been thinking about mobile, I haven't been spending as much time thinking about gaming and media and what I think of as natural areas, but thinking about how do you use that mobile device to disrupt other industries that haven't been disrupted before. Car washing is one. It's a $19 billion a year services industry that's never been disrupted. It's perfect for the mobile application. So I think there are a lot of examples, and that's where I'm actively looking for investments right now.
Anybody doing a car washing robot? Now you have an idea. Go ahead.
Let's go with a platformy kind of idea, something about mobile CRM. A lot of stuff out there, a lot of fragmentation, maybe a way to help manage it as a group, and in the process, create something like a cookie that can tie web usage to mobile usage and actually tie that together. That loop would be very valuable for advertisers and other monetization. So that's one. We've done a company called AppBoy, and I think that there's another company called Halo Shift from India that's in a similar area. That's an area of fruitful work now. We have thousands, hundreds of thousands of apps out there, and trying to manage them with some kind of a common background to get more information on what the folks are doing and how they can be better served at a lower cost. And then maybe go into the area of tying real world with data world through augmented reality world. Google's doing obviously some stuff and coming out supposedly soon with some more stuff in the Google Glasses area, but we've taken a different approach by going into things that are mobile, but not necessarily your phone, like your car, and a company called Mishore in Israel, taking the data that comes from the internet through your windshield and providing you all kinds of information that way, working with the big auto industry. Because we think of only our phone as mobile, but there are other things we use that might be very useful for information to come when your hands are busy driving, etc.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on what's moving in the vertical space?
Well, I'm not in the investment business, I don't have any secrets to talk about.
But if you, in your next startup, then you do. What would you do?
Happily employed at Telefonica.
That's awesome.
There's a couple of things though. What's interesting to me is I've gone over to the other side and I'm now at this massive telco with 300 million customers, 250 million mobile customers. And it makes you look at the world a little differently, which is sort of interesting. I know one of the more interesting things that I've seen going on was what happens when you actually aggregate all of that data. You can do interesting things. And we don't look at it that way so much because we're startups, we don't have the data. But if you're a telco, you actually have a lot of data about what's going on. So for instance, you know, if, let's say you're Verizon, you would know of the people walking past Macy's in Union Square, which ones go in and which ones don't. And at an aggregated level, you could start to say in Union Square what kind of displays in the front of the building work to route what kind of people into that building just by looking at the mobile pattern. Because you know who the users are, you know something about their demographics, you know whether they went into the store or went out of the store. It's a massive big data problem. It's a very, very big data problem because you're dealing with all of your subscribers and where they're going and what they're doing.
But also you have PII, right?
And
the FCC protects you on
If I may, I just saw a company that can identify who exactly those people are.
Right. And so what's interesting is this is not happening actually in Europe. It's one of the things Telefonica Digital is doing in Europe, which is an even worse privacy space to do it in than North America. And you can do it if you aggregate enough. And it was a very interesting to me example of what happens when you turn the world upside down. We all think about what I can do from my phone with my friends and all the rest. Obviously, you have a different point of view. But I think from a startup mentality, thinking about problems that way is kind of an interesting thing to do. We can talk about financial services, we can talk about machine-to-machine communications. But I thought that was actually a very interesting, different look on the world.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I agree that, to Rob's comments, I think offline integration is a pretty interesting space. A lot of us use Uber Cab or Hotel Tonight or apps like that. I think, really are clearing marketplaces that couldn't be reached unless you have a personal device with you. So I think those are interesting spaces. But I think, to some degree as an industry, we tend to kind of look at the shiny pebbles of the new verticals and sometimes the things that were hot 2 years of the businesses that are actually working. So I think, Zynga was obviously a pretty big downer for the gaming industry, so gaming is no longer hot as it was 2 years ago. But when you look at startup companies like a Supercell in Finland that only started a year and a half ago, there have been some pretty public reports about the type of profits and top line it's doing. And I think who would have guessed that, in this quote, not hot space anymore, mobile gaming, you can create something of that level of monetization and that level of success. So I think, that the gaming space and actually the mobile advertising space, again, a space that was hot 4 or 5 years ago, both are areas that are producing real revenue and profit generating mobile companies. So I think, as cool as it is to talk about sort of what's fresh and new, I'd also say go look at the predictions, Mobile Monday events of last year, 2 or 3 years ago, because when you actually look at the businesses that are working, a lot of them, no surprise, fit those categories.
So, how many people were using Groupon 2 years ago? Like we're big into Groupon. And how about nowadays? Wow.
It's different.
Foursquare. How many people were using Foursquare and checking in all the time a couple years ago? How many guys still check in at least like once a month? Daily? Still do? Wow, hardcore. Cool. No, interesting. Oh yeah.
So, my partner David Lee. Actually, on the Foursquare note, just because you brought it up and we're talking about mobile, my partner David Lee and we've been talking about this internally is that Foursquare is one of those companies that is very misunderstood. They started out as this, light, fun, check-in app with all these game mechanics and the leaderboard and points and all that good stuff. But what they were building in the background that entire time is actually a data science company. And what they've been able to do in New York, the types of engineers that they've been able to attract from companies like Google and Calvin, is very impressive. And as you see them going forward, you're going to see a lot more cool things of them surfacing that data and making it more relevant to you in your context, and helping you explore your city, which is, you were exploring your city initially through the points of checking points and competing with your friends, and they're slowly working it into actually a data play, and helping you do that, but really backing it up with millions and millions, actually billions of check-ins. Doing it all through the mobile phone.
Yeah, sorry guys, we lost battery, so the guys on the right, you have to throw your voice. But Tim, and some thoughts that you might have, just on some of these verticals that you're seeing, you might be a favorite of messaging and app discovery or the peer-to-peer stuff that's happening today. What do you?
Well, I agree that all those spaces, the three that you mentioned, are problems that are largely still unsolved or where there's potential for disruption. But I kind of like the question that you were asking the group earlier in terms of who was using an app or a company's service 2 years ago and who's using it today. Because some of our best companies, those are services which you just, once you start using, you continue using day after day, month after month. And there's some products which lend themselves to that, like messaging. But Phil Libin famously talks about the retention of an Evernote user once you start using the product. And my guess is if we were to do that here, those of you who were using Evernote 2 years ago, likelihood would be that you are using it today. And so those are the types of characteristics which get me excited about it.
Todd, at Wilson Sonsini, client-wise, what are you seeing that's coming in, at least on the tech side?
Well, I see companies coming in addressing all those markets, but what is coming recently that's got me excited that I think is really cool is monitoring. So mobile monitoring, whether it's something like Nest for your home or medical device companies that are doing things like mobile phone carriers that can ECGs and monitor heart rhythms. So just the practical application of mobile in that regard, to me, it's super exciting.
Cool. So here's another question for the panel here is on growth opportunities. And I think we've covered some good growth opportunities, but there's still a lot of white space out there. And it's interesting, one is kind of hard to identify white spaces once in a while, but they're pretty obvious once you identify them. So maybe, Rob, if you want to, what's your favorite white space?
Well, I mean, if I was going to say what Sequoia typically says, I'd probably say I won't tell you. That's proprietary. But what I will say, I'll go ahead and put something out here because it is.
I'll let you speak for us then.
Actually, the space that we find extremely interesting is internet-powered hardware, and it's a space we're actively investing. We're a very early investor in Nest, the internet-powered thermostat company, And going forward, we find this very interesting because I've written a lot about this on my blog. The cost of creating these companies has gone down dramatically. And so the ability to start one of these companies for a couple of smart people to start a company here is really unprecedented. But at the same time, it's just as hard to get the companies to the finish line and build something really big. But when you get there, it can be incredibly valuable. These companies are really powered by modern mobile. The reason why is because you can build a brand thanks to social media today. Twitter and Facebook power Kickstarter in a lot of ways. They power people that want to share experiences with physical products by taking pictures of things and sharing them on Instagram and Facebook and their social networks. The types of things that promotion can't buy, you can have with a physical product where people have a daily interaction with it and want to share it with their friends. So that's an area where I'm spending a lot of time. We're very focused. We have a very strong outbound practice there. And your question of white spaces, there are a few big companies like GoPro, Jawbone, Sonos, and others that are doing, literally each are doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue. You might not even be aware of it. And each of them has limited competition in their space, and I think are going to be far more valuable than the mobile-specific outcomes that we've seen over the last year or two.
Yeah, interesting. The Silicon Valley of the 70s, 80s, and 90s was all about hardware. And then we had a nice paradigm shift into software because it was cheaper to start a business and you need more oversight of that. I think it's nice to see that that it's still fairly healthy in Silicon Valley, or would you say that it needs a little bit more help on the investment side, Rob?
Yeah, come talk to me.
All right, David, what do you see in growth opportunities? I know you do a lot of investment overseas, and you have a more of a global vision of what's going on, as opposed to the Silicon Valley level.
Sure. Well, we just opened an office in Tel Aviv, and we now have 7 investments in Europe, several in Canada, one in India. And so for a early stage fund, that's a little bit unusual. We're much smaller than I think most of the guys on the panel. We'd like to be bigger, so if you could help.
Bigger than me.
But you're a real entrepreneur. You're the real deal. We're just VCs. I think the area that we thematically are really excited about is just innovation, disruption of the service economy. You take 300 years of history. The 19th century was about transportation, agriculture, and mining innovation. In the 20th century, about manufacturing innovation. And all those things got pretty efficient. And now the whole service economy, which constitutes 70 or 80% of the US GDP, it's over a majority of the world GDP, is ripe for disruption because there's so many things that a mobile, social, and basically mobile, social, and internet-enabled world can do better than has been done in traditional service organizations, whether it's education, healthcare, government, finance, leisure, entertainment. All these things can be disrupted by you, and you're doing it. So we're investing in so many different areas, it's hard to pick one. I just say right now, the world is your oyster, you're in a great place, you're probably at the center of the universe for what's going on, and just go for it. It's a really exciting time to be alive.
I think, to me, there's still a huge amount of room in mobile at the infrastructure level, because I think everything we've seen in technology here over the last 20 years says the world moves to open. The world moves to open. You pick a piece of technology that hasn't moved to open, and phones aren't there. Phones aren't there because it's this really tight blend of hardware and software. Native works better right now and all those kinds of things. But I think if you were to sit there and say phones are different, they're not going to go to open. I don't buy that over long. I agree, Android has massive momentum. Completely agree, so does Windows. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think there is a lot of white space around following anything down the open feed, whether it's communications, whether it's OS, whether it's payments. I think open, in the end, will win in mobile as it has won elsewhere. I think it'll take a while.
I think there's some of the biggest opportunities around enterprise IT faces around transformation. Just pick the things that Mario brought up as examples, but I think every single one of them was consumer-oriented, and that's for good reason, and that's where the leading edge of the wing has been, whether it's some of these peer-to-peer services or payments, but I think some of the core infrastructure as well as the IT-facing services, most of the security issues, the application management, the ability to control data leakage. They're not as sexy to talk about as an Instagram or as a Google Cap or Intel Tonight or gaming companies, but they're fundamentally critical part of where the IT spend is. It's got to move away from the PC and desktop era. So there's relatively little conversation about that in contrast to the consumer focuses. So I think that's going to be a huge area of innovation this company.
Yeah, that's interesting because old school telco, it was about develop software, throw it on a rack, and then sell it $1 million, $10 million. You'd sell it per sub, or you use the licensing per subscriber or per use, right? Back in the day. And a lot of the software startups that I saw in Silicon Valley were essentially not consumer facing, they were direct to the B2B type of solutions. But something happened in the Valley since like 07 and 06 where...
No, I don't think it did. I think people were just looking the other way. ServiceNow, Splunk, Atlassian, there's a range of companies that have been successful selling B2B. They just don't, because TechCrunch chose not to cover that category too much.
There's more sparkle on those companies. It's not just people with sparkle on their faces. It's just sparkle.
Okay, who's doing enterprise in the audience? Enterprise, really? So you're like, okay.
You want to know where the white space is?
Yeah, okay, consumer related, works, or working on something on consumer related product? Don't be shy. What else do you other guys do?
Healthcare.
Service, okay, who's in the service industry? Okay. Interesting. You see what the growth opportunities is. You see it as maybe service and stuff. But that's also big money, right? Like I said, a lot of the audience has...
It's services, I said.
Not services,
B2B facing.
B2B facing, but I think the audience has realized that there's big money in that. I mean, you do a deal, it's not, you're not getting $1 per user, you're getting $2 million per year per user or per client.
I think separate monetization model, but I think exactly as this gentleman, Ian said, that's what the definition of white space is. It's what everybody else is not doing. I think and then there's real economics there.
Jim?
Well, I think one of the places where some of what Rich is talking about meets the consumer space is in the productivity space on mobile, where you have companies like Dropbox, like Evernote, who may have started out as consumer companies. But what gets me excited, and the reason why I think it's white space, is because when you think about how much time you spend on your phone and all the apps which have been designed to help you, waste time, if you will, on your phones, and then what you do when you're working or when you're being productive on these devices, oftentimes you realize it's only email, calendar, maybe Evernote, maybe Dropbox. There surely are many more use cases for you to be productive, for you to spend productive working time on your smartphone.
I agree with Rich and Tim. I think the enterprise area and productivity, it drives me crazy that from the consumer side on my phone, I can find 1 million things to help me either waste or use time efficiently. But when you get into the enterprise setting, there's really not much there. And I think that I'm seeing more and more clients look at that space. And I think they're taking learnings from the commercial space or consumer space and using that to apply it to the enterprise. I think it's going to be some really cool companies coming up.
I think, so there's a lot of chatter about education right now. I still think the opportunities there are still massive and the needs haven't been met yet, especially through mobile devices and real-time interactions. Investors in a company called Class Dojo that lets teachers interact with students in real time in the class through mobile phones and give them positive reinforcements for good habits and bad habits. As you get into the classroom, there's everything in there can be touched essentially by a mobile device and by software. It really hasn't yet. All these proprietary systems for each school district, and all the problems with K-12, and then above that, there's still a massive opportunity there that just hasn't been met yet.
Cool. Here, this will be our last topic we talk about, but it's also device platforms. So Windows Phone, I guess struggling trying to make a dent in the ecosystem. iOS, from a numbers perspective, not dominating, but on the monetization side, definitely dominating. And also thoughts about Android and Gecko. When will it be the year for Windows? And also Android is still littered with mobile payment issues. Google Checkout is not available in every country that Play is available in. So there's some frustration from developers there. So I guess I'll start with you, Rob. What are your thoughts here on device platforms?
Yeah, I'll keep it super simple, which is, I'll say something that was controversial when I was saying it 3 years ago. I think it's a two-horse race. I think we're in a stable duopoly between iOS and Android. I think Apple's more than happy to have, say, 20% of the market in the places that have money because they end up with 80% of the profitability. And it'll be that kind of that premium experience for end users. And that sandbox, in some ways, is difficult and as closed as it may be, also ensures quality. So I think you'll continue to see a lot of the new great experiences coming out on that platform first and then expanding to Android. And unfortunately for other players, I think that you have this duopoly for about, I'll go ahead and say beyond 2013, I think for about 4 or 5 years. You'll see twists and turns, and you'll see a lot going on the hardware side around it, but I think you'll see a stable duopoly there for about 4 or 5 years.
So overseas, right, what do you think? Is it going to be, wouldn't it be Windows versus Android in a larger market?
I'll let somebody else attack that. Yeah.
David, you have a better vision of a global scale.
Well, I'm not so sure I do because we really don't care. I mean, Mobile Capital, you come in, you tell us where you're going to be focused, and we're going to ask you an obvious question. Why are you not developing on Android if you're only on Apple or the way around? Windows is, for us, definitely the third one. It has been, of course, Nokia side, big on the international scope on the feature phone, but I think the world's moving kind of too fast for them right now. So we really don't care. I think it doesn't really matter. I do agree with you that over time, an open system should win out. That's just one uninformed person's opinion.
I agree with Rob 100% here in North America and in Western Europe. I don't agree outside of those geographies. And nothing wrong with those geographies. Big markets, lots of money to be made. I think as soon as we move outside those geographies, I don't think that's going to be true. And I think all of us who are building global businesses are actually going to have to come to face with that increasingly quickly over the years ahead. Because our businesses are going to get pulled into countries where all of a sudden there's more than 2 platforms to worry about. That's just going to be the way it is.
In old school mobile, it used to be the carrier that was the pain in terms of distribution at the choke point. I hope that, I think realistically it's a duopoly. I think Rob said it exactly right. I hope it's not. I hope actually for once that Microsoft succeeds. Because I think if it's a tripod, then the 3 of them will balance each other from a market power standpoint. You won't have as many choke points in the industry. But right now it looks like a duopoly, realistically.
Yeah, I think fragmentation will be here to stay for a while. Like Rich, I think it will benefit the developer community if there's a third horse in the race.
It creates jobs.
Yes. There's platform layers we can all build on top of this.
I think there'll be 3 players. It's Microsoft seeing people.
What kind of fun do you have? An iPhone? Topher?
Like everyone else, we can hope that there are 3. In reality, I think it's leaning towards 2. And when you look at the power of Apple and Android today, or iOS and Android today, it's pretty staggering. At least we don't invest a ton internationalism against this moment.
Cool. All right, we're going to play a game here. Call it Ask the Investor. So I'll go with 3 questions and see who's got a question here. Yeah, ask the panel.
Hi, I was wondering, what do you guys think of the future of U.S. online gambling? Online gambling, future in the US.
I think Zynga hopes gold. Yeah, I can't speak much to it. We're not investors in it.
So I will. I'll speak. We're happy to invest in it. Come to us. And all these self-righteous other guys won't do it. We think it's fine.
Actually,
who doesn't go to Vegas in this room?
There's an interesting company called Tapia out of Tel Aviv.
Absolutely.
And Caesars did a huge acquisition on them earlier this year. And they've been slowly buying up a lot of companies. But anyway, by the way, the Mobile Monday, about 2 months ago, that was our topic, where you find that topic on Ustream.
And it's going to happen. It's happening right now. There are bills in Congress. There are states doing it. It's going to happen in various ways. It'll be fragmented, of course, like everything that Congress puts its little fingers on. But it will happen. You know, people should be free to do what they want to do, as long as it's safe.
Pragmatically, it's closer to the government.
Absolutely.
Hi, well, first of all, thank you so much, and a big high five to all of your wives and significant others. I really appreciate this event. Not to belabor the point, but I'm curious to hear more about the share economy. It was touched on a little bit, but more about how access over ownership is being enabled through mobile technology.
I'll give one example. It's not from our portfolio. I wish I had been an investor there. I think we're going to do his next company. But it's called Waze, W-A-Z-E. How many of you use it? Yeah. You find it useful? And the common enemy is traffic jams, right? And it's an amazing opportunity, kind of crowdsourcing of sharing information that, you know, everybody can benefit if you share, but nobody benefits if you don't share. So it's a wonderful example. There are a lot more. Somebody else will have some.
One more question. Okay, they give the big hoop here in this up here in front of them. Wearables. Who's in augmented reality? Anybody have it?
I think there's a number of people who are out buying Jawbone up and Nike Fuel Band and Fitbits. I think it shows that people want to track the visual data, but they are oftentimes complemented with a web or mobile app or service that lets you see what's actually going on in a rich environment. So I think that trend will continue into other areas.
Cool. So I have one last question for the panel. 2013 prediction. So if we're all here after Armageddon, what are your thoughts on 2013? And could be whatever comes first to mind, but what will be the killer app in 2013, or what will start to emerge? Start with you, Tim.
Prediction for 2013. How about there'll be one multi-billion-dollar event, which I don't know if it will involve Nokia or RIM, but there'll be major movements in the industry, which I'm sure everyone will be watching.
It's not much of a prediction because the FTC has been pretty open about it, but I think there's going to be progressively more crackdown on privacy, especially with respect to children.
In terms of sectors, I think we'll continue to see social commerce, companies like Pinterest, Warby Parker continue to explode. Companies that create a real brand connection with the consumer and commerce side.
Rich?
I think the distinction of what is a mobile company, I think will really start to fade away and disappear. Part of this is because, a lot of us here because the internet company is really designed with mobile in mind first. Part of this, I think, a lot of the legacy issues that used to be about carrier integration and balkanization of handsets is slowly going away because of the duopoly that we talked about. So I think, what quote is a mobile company, what is an internet company? I think that, I'm not sure that's that bold of a prediction, but I think that distinction really starts to get away, starting pretty much now.
I'll do 3. First million Firefox OS phones will get sold next year. Everybody remember when Nokia made fun of Apple for something that sell millions of phones? So it's a good number. I think the first breakout Internet of Things startup will truly happen. I don't know what it's going to be, but the first thing we point and go, yeah, that's Internet of Things company. What's going to happen? And the last thing is, I think Facebook will actually figure out mobile. Because they have to, it's existential. I think that'll happen this year. Mobile.
And at the close of 2012, we had an election, both in California and federally, and Europe had a number of elections, in France in particular I'm thinking about, where I think we voted in an extremely dangerous way for innovation in terms of raising taxation and regulation. And I think we're getting to the critical tipping point the wrong way. And I'll give you an example. 4 of my investors, LPs in my fund, have moved out of California because of the California tax increase. And I know several entrepreneurs that are moving their businesses to Texas, Nevada, Washington State, etc. This is a real serious trend. I urge all of you to get very informed about it. And just as a data point, I told you we opened an office in Tel Aviv recently, and I just came back from Colombia. Both those countries grew at 4.8% GDP last year. The US is 1.8%, Europe was flat, Japan is flat. The big OECD countries are on their backs because we're really going the wrong way. And I think a lot of other countries are leading the right way forward by less taxation on entrepreneurs and allowing more reward for your hard work. And this is political speech.
Yeah, I will commend you on picking, because you took 3. One of the ones that I would say is, I think it'll be, especially towards the tail end of next year, a year of internet-powered hardware. I think there will be a couple of companies that are growing. There's some really big revenues going on in there right now. And that's where I think there's going to be a huge breakthrough in mobile.
Cool. That wraps the year for everyone. I'd like to say thank you to Microsoft for our host, Coney for the drinks. Also like to thank Telefonica and Wilson Sonsini for making this event possible tonight. We will see you all next year, January 21st, mobile and web.
Are you going to put this on where? On your